Brother Hunt is Ebenezer and Ebenezer's brother Hunt, or Hunte as we used to call him. Um, he was one of the most committed Christians I've ever met. Whether it was Sunday night service, Friday night service, Wednesday night service, Sabbath, he was always at church. And if somebody didn't show up, you know Hunte was going to stand up and take care of business. He was that type of person, committed his life to Christ through service in the church. I remember specifically one of the things that Hunte would always say when he was preaching, "Brethren, I am just saying this so I can stir up your pure minds." That was his favorite saying ever. And it's one of those things that I will never forget about him. A very kind Christian, committed person. And I've never had a strong word against him. He's always been very kind to me. I'm very, very sorry to know we've lost him.
It is a sad occasion, but it is my pleasure to give this tribute to a friend of mine, Brother Julian Hunt. Brother Julian Hunt was blessed by God and lived his allotted 20 plus years as a servant of God and a friend of so many. His absence will be noted, but because of his strong commitment and dedication to his Lord and Savior, we who are still here can confidently claim the promises of Jesus of a reunion with him without any further separation. The Apostle Paul, in the books of Ephesians and 2 Timothy, describes 2 or 3 different types of workers. There is one who is an eye servant and men pleaser. The other is described as a servant of Christ, doing the will of God from the heart, or, according to Timothy, one who is profitable for the ministry. During the many years I have known and interacted with Brother Hunt as an employee of the East Caribbean Conference of Seventh-day Adventists, as a church officer, and as an active layman, I have evaluated him as a friend, a personal friend, a genuine Christian worker, reliable, dependable, with a balanced, friendly, and approachable disposition, eager to do God's work. I worked closely with him in pitching a tent for a large crusade, where toward the end of the day, when we were all tired and the task was still incomplete, others were gone, but Brother Hunt stood by until we closed off for the day. As the leader of the Ebenezer Seventh-day Adventist Church, Brother Hunt saw it grow from a small wooden church structure with limited space for growth and expansion to where we are today, an edifice which now stands as a lighthouse and a city of refuge in the community. Brother Hunt, who also seemed to enjoy doing God's work from the heart. He was a profitable servant of God. He now rests from his labors, awaiting the sound of the trumpet and the resurrection of those who died believing in Christ as their Redeemer. May his life and ministry be emulated by those to whom the baton has been passed. Thank you, Brother Hunt. We believe that you fought a good fight, and because of God's grace and his mercy, you can claim the crown and the mansion prepared with your name already inscribed on it. God is a great God and a merciful God. Thank you, Jesus, for taking care of your children. May God bless the family and the friends of this great warrior. May we be faithful so we can see him again in the earth made new, is my wish for each one of us here today. Blessings.
Good afternoon, everyone. My deepest condolences to the Ebenezer Church family at the passing of our dear brother Julian Hunt. Brother Hunt was a humble, caring, pleasant, and dedicated man. He was always willing to give a listening ear. My memories of him preaching on Sabbath were to keep us faithful to our commitment to Christ. He would say things like, "Do not let those pork mouthed people wash their mouths on you, for you are God's children." Some of his famous scriptures that still stands out in my mind today are Jeremiah chapter 17, verse 9, which says, "The heart of man is deceitful above all things and desperately wicked. Who can know it?" And because judgment is not executed speedily, the heart of man is set to do evil continually. May he rest in peace until that great getting up morning, when we shall all meet on that beautiful shore. God's blessings. Thank you.
Good afternoon, relatives, friends, former work colleagues, and all those watching via live stream. This reflection on the life of Julian Hunt is by Marceline Greenidge, Syljean Clark, and Janice Applewhite, all retirees of the East Caribbean Conference. The passing of Brother Hunt does not produce a happy feeling, especially since I was hoping to see him become a centenarian. However, when he was 94 years old, we talked about his being just 6 runs away from the century and how the batting was progressing. But happy believer in God as he was, I do recall his words, "Sis, if the Lord wills." He had a spirit of serenity and resoluteness of purpose that will not be forgotten. When he arrived to work at East Caribbean Conference, 3 of us who joined the workforce shortly before him, Mrs. Clark, Mrs. Applewhite, and yours truly, fell in love with his demeanor, advice, punctuality, confidentiality, and other qualities. He, always 26 years ahead of me, was generous with his stewardship counsel. I remember one day we were having a conversation about the skyrocketed cost of cream of wheat, and with his good sense of humor he said, "Sis, if you can't buy a whole box, buy a half." I retorted, "Where are those sold?" And we had a good laugh. He stressed returning God's money to his storehouse first, before buying anything for yourself. When I recently asked Janice what impressed her most about him, she said that his charitable spirit was praiseworthy. Before she was married and lived in Station Hill, she walked to the top of Bridge Road every morning, and he would always give her a ride to work. After she was married and relocated to Bush Hall, she would take a shortcut to his house and get a ride along with another worker, Brother David Oliver, who now lives overseas, in Brother Hunt's vehicle. So honest was Julian that when the girls at the workplace received paychecks, we would endorse them and ask Brother Hunt to change them on his trip to town. Money always came back correct in the envelope with your name on it. Mrs. Syljean Clark recalls his pleasant smile and contented spirit when his wife Salome had to sleep away from home because her culinary skills were needed early in the morning to ensure that the persons working with the Breath of Life crusade received the necessary nourishment for the day's evangelistic work, and also at night. He bought food for conference camps and even helped SDA workers in organizations outside of Barbados. No more time is allotted to recall other fond memories of this helpful, unswerving, nice, trustworthy, enthusiastic gentleman, but he is at rest, awaiting the call of the life giver. Thank you.
Message of condolence from MacDonald Savory. I want to express my sympathy and condolences to the Hunt family at this time of loss. I have known Brother Julian Hunt for about 60 years. This was when Pastor Winston Cush, a Guyanese minister, conducted a series of evangelistic meetings on Montgomery School Pasture in 1961. Out of curiosity, I watched the services, never having any intention of joining them. However, after listening to the sermons and observing how they operated, I decided to study the Adventist message and eventually joined them in December 1963. I attended the services before the day of my baptism, and that is when I got to know him. He was a home missionary leader at the time, and I listened to his enthusiastic exhortations every Sabbath morning after Sabbath school was over. I think that Sister Ida Estwick was the superintendent at the time. One morning, I remember while giving his discourse, Brother Caitlin got up and asked, "You keep talking about bringing in members and we do not have a church yet. Where are you going to put them?" Quickly, Brother Hunt responded, "When you get the church, who are you going to put in it?" I smiled at his witty response. He was always enthusiastic as a member and led the sound service with the same enthusiasm. In his younger days, I had several conversations with him about the scriptures. Winston Seal, Harriet Lithcott, and myself often went out together in his little green car from place to place. I still remember the bank holiday when we went to Sam Lord's Castle Beach and spent the afternoon there. He took a picture with Harriet and himself, which he often boasted about. Ironically, he never remembered the photographer. I did a good job. Also, we often went to Grisette's housing area on Sabbath afternoons to do missionary work there. We would give Bible studies or enroll people in the Voice of Prophecy lessons. Alas, none of this goes on now. I believe that Sister Yard and the late Sister Toppin were students under his tutelage. Shortly after the Wiggins Crusade at Eden Lodge in 1967, he asked me to accompany him to Bridgefield to speak to the gentleman who used to have a small church building in Medford Road. We went to ask him to sell us the building. The old man bluntly refused. However, his wife was more cooperative and he left his phone number with her. To our astonishment, he got a call from her about 2 weeks later informing him that her husband was dead and she wanted to sell. The conference bought it and extended it to accommodate the members at Eden Lodge. The small company from Apple Grove joined later. As first elder, home missionary leader, Sabbath school teacher, he always showed that keen interest as a member. He was one of the founding members of the Ebenezer Seventh-day Adventist Church. Only Sister Marie Phillips and Brother Winston Seal remain now. Before leaving Eagle Hall, where he used to live, I often asked about him. I was saddened to hear that he was unable to recognize anyone. Prudence's passing was quite a surprise as well. The last thing I heard was that he had lost both his feet. Nevertheless, he had done his part. I imagine that the church would have been grateful for Pastor Padmore's intervention. Now the harvest is past and the summer is ended. I trust that he, with all of those who have labored in the vineyard of the Lord, will await the trumpet call on that resurrection morning. I extend my condolences to his surviving family and hope that they will also follow his example. God bless. Thank you. MacDonald Savory.
Brother Hunt was a remarkable man. Included in my reflections of him was his love for his birds, especially the budgies that he kept and how he liked to sit in the cool of the evening with them, and the occasional pigeon that may come by. I love to hear people's life stories, and Brother Hunt had a rich life. On our visits, whether I was on my own or with Joanne or Clyde, he would talk of his life from learning a trade in tailoring, cutting sugar canes in Florida, going to Connecticut and Wisconsin, traveling the world. He would talk of how he worshipped as a little boy at Black Rock with his mother and later gave his life in baptism in September 1961 at a crusade when he returned from Florida. The same crusade where he met his beloved wife, Salome. Brother Hunt's memory was sharp. He could recite passages from Ellen White, citing the chapter and page number, read from books in his home library. He wasn't stingy in sharing his books either, but you had to remember to return them, or he'll give you a subtle reminder. He liked his quotations, especially this one. Gratitude is often found where least expected. The fact that the leper returned to give thanks to the great healer made his conduct most remarkable in the sight of the Jews. His recitation of poems from his days at school, all those many years ago, was impressive. Just today, I finally found the entire one he frequently repeated. Tell me not in mournful numbers, life is but an empty dream, for the soul is dead that slumbers, and things are not what they seem. Life is real, life is earnest, and the grave is not its goal. Dust thou art, to dust returnest, was not spoken of the soul. And that is a poem called A Psalm of Life by Henry Longfellow. During our visits, when the subject turned, his love for Salome and appreciation for Prudence showed through his voice, or was heard rather, in his voice, in the words he chose and the way he spoke of them. Sometimes he would share some of the jokes they made, and his hearty laugh was infectious. Another reflection I have of Brother Hunt is his love for singing. I will sometimes smile at his starting up a congregational hymn when the musicians or some service leader took too long. To me, it showed a bit of his intolerance for delay in the work of God. He believed in doing things a certain way when it came to God's house and work. Brother Hunt's strong, distinctive voice continued to be heard during our visits when he was in the senior citizens' home. I was glad I recorded them, even though I didn't get or ask permission. Just you listen. I am standing on the promises of God. Standing on the promises of God, my Savior. Standing on the promises, standing on the promises. I'm standing on the promises of God. Standing on the promises that cannot fail. When the heavens turn to dark and fear and sin. While the heavens and the lonely land prevail. I am standing on the promises of God. I tell you, standing, I'm standing. Standing on the promises of Christ, my Savior. Standing on the promises, standing on the promises. I'm standing on the promises of God. I will keep those memories close, as there will never be another Brother Hunt. Joyce Carol Oates wrote, "People come into your life for a reason. They might not know it themselves why. You might not know it, but there is a reason."
Our Brother Hunt was a pivotal man after that. Either I came in and found Brother Hunt. I want y'all to tell me what are your memories of Brother Hunt? Some of them, Brother Hunt.
My first memory, remember, Brother Hunt would preach, and he will always say, "This statement is pregnant with meaning." I could never forget that.
Yeah.
Yeah, oh yes, man. Oh yes. Anybody else, Brother Hunt?
Brother Brewster, what do you call it? It's singing. It's singing. That lovely voice he had.
All right, wonderful, Lance. I'm talking in the chat from Irving.
And what we're saying is that nobody ever called Brother Hunt Julian. It was as if his first name was Brother, and his second name Julian, and his last name Hunt.
Okay, wonderful. And welcome, Irving, as well.
Yes, there's one thing I remember about Brother Hunt. That was his preaching. That famous sermon, "We are living, we are dwelling in a grand and awful time." Brother Hunt always used to preach a lot of prophecy, and that stayed with me. You know, the way how he presented his messages was very appealing. And he's also very jovial. You always put a little laughter into his message, which also made it very interesting.
And that is so true. And the other good thing that I could remember about Brother Hunt is going to singing band when they had the in-gathering, and he would always lead out in raising the songs. I think he used to sing tenor. And when we go out to the singing band, he would just sing all the songs from the church hymnal. You had to walk with the church hymnal when you went to singing band. And when we did open air meeting, it would be his voice, because most of the times many people weren't there, but Brother Hunt would be present. Everything that the church had, he supported it. And I would never forget, growing up as a child, Sister Hunt used to live at our house. She helped to care for us. And he would come over with this little green car that we call the Green Lizard. I don't know if any of you remember that. Alvin might remember it. And he would drive this green car, and she would be in the front seat of the car sitting down, and he would come and pick her up for church. And when we had singing band, he would always pick her up, and this was just before they got married. But it was really funny to see him driving that little green car.
Pastor Lucas.
Okay. I was saying, remember him driving a black car, and he goes to church, and after service, the car would not start, and he had to crank up the car to get it started. That's what I recall.
I remember Brother Hunt for quoting a lot of spirit of prophecy. He used to quote spirit of prophecy a lot.
Yeah, John, my wife John, just said that her memory of Brother Hunt is that he could quote E.G. White's passages from memory, some interesting and long passages. He just quote to support what we're saying. And one word, Brother Hunt used, a word that I always thought it was not a word that was acceptable. Brother Hunt would use the word in church about pussyfooting. I was thinking about, is that a word that one can use in church? And that was the word Hunte used when person were playing the fool when they should not be playing fool and should know to do better.
One of the things I remember for Brother Hunt, when I got to the church in 1974, that's when I came to Ebenezer. I came to Ebenezer through Glendine Small at that time. So when I got there, I remember Brother Hunt, when he would invite people, I remember people coming to the church from the conference and all those young people who are aspiring to be ministers, he would bring them to Ebenezer to preach. I remember, and he would even call me by my first name, very jovial, and he would always be there to encourage me. That's one of the things that I like about him. He has a unique way of calling your name, you know, and I found him to be very, very, very exciting individual to be around. I knew when he started to pray, he would pray along as well too. So he would have you there for a while, and but I appreciated all that he did for us. It was interesting for me as a young person growing up there.
Thank you, Dr. Mark. Irvin, your hand was raised. Let's have Irvin come in now.
Yes, in connection with Brother Hunt, I think we really ought to recognize the fact that Brother Hunt played multiple roles in the church. Right? Just about anything, including the physical work around the church, maintenance type work, Brother Hunt would have been involved in that. And certainly, to my mind, one of his notable contributions was even in the construction of the building where we now worship. Because after Brother Hunt resigned from his work, from his employment at the conference, he then proceeded to behave as if his job was working on the Ebenezer church site. We spoke about him serving as an elder. We spoke about him singing. He would have served many times, many years as we used to call it then, the activities leader. But perhaps one of the things that has to be mentioned is that he served for many, many years unbroken as the church's treasurer. Additionally, I don't remember the vehicles that some of the previous speakers mentioned, but while he was in the employ of the conference, he used to drive the conference's Volkswagen van. And many, many members of the church would remember benefiting from a ride. Whenever the church has to go, whether it be a social or whatever, you could rely on Brother Hunt to be there, and somebody is going to get a ride. Even if they only get a ride if it's in St. Lucie, because of his family connections in St. Lucie to his wife, you may only get a ride to the parish church on the way back, but people will get rides, and that was a feature. He would pull up to the church. For some mysterious reason, he would rev the engine before he turned it off, and everybody knew about that. There was something else I wanted to say, but it's slipping me right now. But there are many quotes that people can attribute to him. Oh yeah, one that I wanted to mention is that I always remember him using this phrase in connection with when America became independent. And he quoted somebody as saying, when they became independent, somebody was so excited, they were carrying a ladder and they were running around somewhat carelessly. And somebody had to tell, and he said, we're free, we're free. And somebody had to tell that person that your freedom ends where my nose begins.
It's so good to be here with you all this evening. And I just want to comment on my moments with Brother Hunt at Ebenezer Church. In fact, when I joined the church in 1976, after that crusade down University Drive, Brother Hunt was one of the key persons. In fact, to me, everything then rotated around Brother Hunt. Brother Hunt was the one who would open the church most of the times, even though the keys was next door by 60 yards. Brother Hunt was present for all services. And I wouldn't want to repeat what the others said, but I would want to add maybe some things that weren't mentioned. Brother Hunt usually drive the conference van, and whenever we had excursions, picnics, Brother Hunt would be the food van. So we would be playing games and whatever. But from the time Brother Hunt comes, it was time to eat. It was food time. And Brother Hunt don't care where we went. We can rest assured that Brother Hunt would find us. And we did go some places, and I mean remote places, that would be Turner's Hall, Woods or Gully, whether it be down St. Lucie, but wherever Brother Hunt was there. And even though at times it would seem as if Brother Hunt was against the young people, wherever we went, he was there for us. Brother Hunt was also very evangelistic. And Ebenezer had a special thing going for it, because every year, or almost every year, Ebenezer Church had to have a crusade. Crusading was a part, and Brother Hunt would bring the tent, he would pitch the tent, and it was a joy to see Brother Hunt pitching tent, because he would show us how we should hammer the stakes in. He would show us how we need to put up the poles, etc., etc. So Brother Hunt was really a central figure when it comes to a new church. Irvin did mention also the building of the church. Brother Hunt was always there on Sundays when we were building, and he was, I would say, the life figure of the session, because he would always, make it jovial, or he always had a joke to make as we were building. So I want to thank, the folks at Ebenezer for such a program. Yes, reminded us going back. And I think this could really help us reflect on those early years at Ebenezer. Thank you.
Brother Hunt. I knew Brother Hunt at all levels, right? As a teenager, as an AOY leader, church board member, choir member, just name it. Now, he was a pillar of strength at Ebenezer Church. Anything that was needed, any office that needed to be filled, and nobody could be found when Brother Hunt stood up. I mean that literally. He was there to do it. I remember times when we couldn't find the first elder. Brother Hunt said, okay, I will do it. It applied to everything. He was our biggest supporter for youth activities. Although I must join with somebody else there. I think Bernard who spoke just now. When I got a church board, I used to smile. Brother Hunt would give me red blows at church board about all these socials that we plan in Canada, young people all about the place. Right? But when we got to the social, Brother Hunt was the first there. Always. So I kind of understood the thing. I kind of understood it. Choir, he was a choir. He used to lead the choir before the Carmichael came. He was choir leader. He was foremost in singing in the church. Evangelism, he was there. Brother Hunt is Ebenezer's Brother Hunt. There's only can put it. During my years that he was there with him. But he was a phenomenal character, and one that taught me quite a lot. I learned quite a lot about church leadership and management and commitment, faithfulness to God in church service. I mean, I don't know everybody, but Brother Hunt was one that I would say was the most faithful man when it comes to Ebenezer Church. Most faithful. He's a pillar of strength. A pillar of strength for me personally, because I learned a lot from observing him. There's a lot more to say, but I guess people have said some already, so I wouldn't bother to go any further.
For Brother Hunt, yes, he was a pillar of strength and encouragement. For me, for Ebenezer, I remember when Ebenezer had their harvest time. When, for me, I know when I got baptized, the following day was the harvest. That was on April the 21st. I don't know what happened to the harvesters since then, but I realized that they don't have any now. but I do remember those harvest times that we would gather in the park. Brother Hunt would play in getting us all together to make sure we had the church beautified for the event, and the practicing of the choir and having them sing. I remember my mother being in the choir. So those are little bits as people, those who like Pastor Lucas, as he spoke, because I remember Pastor Lucas from the time I was a young man, since we attended the same school, secondary school. So my time with Brother Hunt was just like what Pastor Lucas mentioned. Always there for us as young people and always there to encourage us along the way.